Assemblywoman, go ahead and proceed.
Good afternoon, Senators. I am here to present AB 957, a bill that would clarify that when it comes to Family Code Section 3011, specifically when it comes to disputes over custody, that the definition of the health, safety, and welfare of the child include a parent's affirmation of the child's gender identity. Senators, currently, when parents do not agree on affirming a TGI, which I'll use that acronym regularly, means transgender, gender diverse, and intersex. When a parent do not agree on affirming a TGI child's gender identity, the Family Code fails to provide guidance on how judges should consider the best interests of a TGI child. AB 957 was originally introduced to amend both Family Code 3011 and the Code of Civil Procedure, but after working with the committee, it was narrowed in scope to only amend Family Code 3011. The amendments taken do not substantially differ from its previous version. Our bill was always amending Section 3011 of the Family Code. However, instead of stating that a judge must consider a parent's affirmation of the child's gender identity because it's in the best interest of the child to affirm their gender identity, the amendments provide better clarity that as a judge is considering factors in a custody dispute, the health, safety, and welfare of the child also include the affirmation of a child's identity. This amendment allows judicial discretion when conducting an analysis of the best interests of the child. Given that affirmation can occur in many different ways, the language prevents the creation of a checklist that must be met in order to demonstrate affirmation. I also want to take the opportunity to address some things that have been stated about this bill. I've heard from some folks that our bill does not define what affirmation means. However, a plain language reading of the word affirmation is that to affirm a child's gender identity is to accept and support it. Family Code 3011 also does not strictly define the term health, safety, and welfare, but courts are able to interpret the plain language meaning of these words to account for a myriad of circumstances depending on the case before them. In addition, some have expressed concerns that this bill equates the lack of affirmation on gender identity to abuse. First, our bill is not referencing the criminal code and would not be used as any sort of means of deeming or charging a parent as abusive. Second, it should be stated that this code section is not solely related to abusive behavior, as in the same code section, the judge must also consider the nature and amount of contact with both parents, which has nothing to do with abuse. Some have concerns about forcing medical procedures upon children. We also want to clarify that our bill is not referencing gender-affirming care or gender-affirming health care, which is a separate process between one's doctor and a child's parents and not something we are asking a judge to consider custody upon. Others have expressed concern that folks who are tolerant of their child's gender identity will be incorrectly labeled as not affirming their child's identity. Affirmation is not binary, just like health, safety, and welfare is not binary. Family courts and judges are looking at the whole picture. If both parents are accepting of their child's gender identity, this issue will not be the thing that tips scale towards any parent. Affirmation of gender identity looks different for each individual, but the primary modality of gender affirmation is family acceptance and social support. It is also a recognition that all people, no matter their age, are dynamic and constantly growing and changing. What affirmation looks like at one stage of growth may look very different from another stage. The intent behind our amendment is specifically to allow nuance for the judge to account for similar situations, and the larger issue surrounds parents who are antagonistic to their child's gender identity. Being antagonistic to a child's gender identity dramatically affects a child's mental well-being. Conversely, in TGI children that experience familial acceptance, suicide attempts are reduced by half. TGI youth are already at a higher risk of depression, mental health crisis, self-harm, and suicide than their cis peers. 82% of transgender folks experience suicide ideation, and 40% make a suicide attempt in their lifetime. Furthermore, many TGI children are not safe in their own homes because of a non-informing or abusive caretaker. This leads many TGI youth to run away from home, leaving them vulnerable to housing, instability, exploitation, and abuse. Research demonstrates that family acceptance of LGBTQ+ youth is a crucial protective factor a crucial protective factor in combating depression and substance abuse. Well-rounded social support from friends and family members is strongly associated with the positive mental development, physical health, and overall well-being. AB 957 would center the health and welfare of TGI youth by acknowledging that affirmation of their gender identity is in their best interests. I would like to now introduce my witnesses, Jonathan Clay with Trans Youth Liberation, and Melissa Thomas with the Women's Foundation of California.